In the skies above Israel, a storm of fire rained down. 150 ballistic missiles, 12 days of chaos, and in the shadows, America's missile shield buckled. This wasn't just a Middle East flashpoint. It was a warning shot for Washington. And what it revealed was terrifying. The recent 12-day war between Iran and Israel has sounded alarm bells across Washington. The conflict, which saw Tehran unleash a barrage of ballistic missiles in retaliation for Israeli airstrikes, exposed not just the vulnerabilities of the Israeli defense network, but also raised serious questions about America's own missile defense readiness. In a detailed report, the Wall Street Journal warned of an alarming gap in the US missile defense stockpile, spotlighting both strategic and logistical shortfalls during what became one of the most intense air defense operations in modern Middle Eastern conflict. The US response was swift and unprecedented, but not nearly enough. To bolster Israel's defense, the US deployed 2 of its prized terminal high-altitude area defense, or THAAD, systems. These sophisticated interceptors are among the Pentagon's most advanced anti-missile assets, designed to shoot down incoming ballistic threats in their terminal phase. But the sheer scale of Iran's offensive forced the Pentagon to commit almost a third of its entire THAAD arsenal, 2 out of just 7 active units, to the Israeli front.
To my knowledge, the US has never deployed 2 THAADs in one country before. It's an extraordinary commitment of US technology and personnel to Israel's security.
Even with this extraordinary show of support, Iranian missiles still managed to break through US and Israeli defenses. According to the Journal, more than 150 THAAD interceptors were launched during the fighting, a staggering figure that represents almost 25% of the entire interceptor stockpile the Pentagon has acquired since the program's inception. This extraordinary usage has now triggered a logistical crisis. The cost of replenishing these fired interceptors is estimated at between $1.5 billion and $2 billion, and with defense contractor Lockheed Martin only able to produce around 100 THAAD missiles annually, the resupply timeline could stretch beyond a year. The US Navy too found itself heavily involved. Its destroyers, positioned across the Mediterranean and Red Sea, fired more than 80 standard missile interceptors in defense of Israeli airspace. These shipborne interceptors, built by RTX, are priced between $8 million and $25 million each, depending on the variant. But once depleted, the ships, unable to reload at sea, had to return to port. This exposed what analysts called a critical design flaw for long-term engagements. America's warships still lack a robust system for rearming in live combat zones. Sailors were reportedly forced to make rapid decisions in heavily saturated airspace, identifying incoming threats among clouds of debris, rocket boosters, decoys, and real warheads. The fog of war was compounded by coordination challenges between US and Israeli forces, with overlapping fire reported on some targets due to communication bottlenecks. Despite the billions spent on layered missile defense, the systems struggled under volume. And while Israeli officials praised the US for saving thousands of lives, military planners are now grappling with sobering operational lessons. Beyond the battlefield, the crisis has sparked a wave of concern about long-term American readiness. Of the 7 operational THAAD systems owned by the US, 5 are currently deployed. 2 in Israel, others in Guam, South Korea, and Saudi Arabia. That leaves just 2 systems inside the continental US, one of which is used for training purposes. Such stretched deployment leaves little room for what the military calls dwell time, the crucial recovery phase during which systems undergo maintenance, upgrades, and operator training. Without it, readiness can degrade rapidly. In fact, the journal revealed that during the height of the conflict, the Pentagon even considered redirecting interceptors that had already been sold to Saudi Arabia, an extraordinary and politically sensitive move, given that Saudi oil infrastructure was also under threat from Iranian missiles. Though the plan was ultimately shelved, it reflects how tight US inventory had become. Meanwhile, Israel's own multi-layered defense network comprising the Arrow, David Sling and Iron Dome systems was nearing collapse by the war's final days. Israeli forces were reportedly using the remaining interceptors carefully, and by the end, were dangerously close to depleting their supply of Arrow 3, their most advanced long-range system.
Had Iran fired a few more large volleys of missiles, Israel could have exhausted its supply of top-tier Arrow 3 munitions.
What's become clear is that American planners had not fully prepared for high-volume sustained missile raids. While US missile systems were originally designed to counter isolated attacks from strategic rivals like Russia, China or North Korea, they have not adapted fast enough to the new age of drone swarms and cheap, abundant ballistic threats, especially from state-backed militias like the Houthis in Yemen or adversaries like Iran. The Iran-Israel war, experts argue, was a glimpse into future battlefields and one that the US is poorly equipped for. The strategic implications stretch far beyond the Middle East. With tensions building in the Indo-Pacific, particularly around Taiwan, and the war in Ukraine continuing to drain Western stockpiles, the US finds itself in a dangerous position, vulnerable to mass-scale, sustained air attacks and lacking both the stockpiles and production capacity to respond effectively. The journal's investigation paints a sobering picture. America's missile shield may be technologically advanced, but it's stretched thin and built for precision threats rather than saturation warfare. The Iran-Israel conflict may have ended, but for Washington, the real reckoning has only just begun.